and sing Shawn Michaels' theme song. You're not singing it.
I think I'm cute. You know I'm sexy. Oh, goodness. It's been a minute since I've heard that song, so, like, it's not that I forgot it.
It's just like, I really don't want to sing it. Which is probably what Shawn Michaels said when Vince was like, I got it. You're going to sing your own theme song.
Which I guess isn't a bad thing, but, like...
It's funny.
It worked for him.
It made sense with the character that at the time when they debuted it that he would sing it. So, did you know? Now, I don't know if it was every version, but I know it was definitely the first version. I think it was every version, though. That's Shawn Michaels singing his own theme song.
I did know about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm asking America.
Oh.
Yeah, that's true. That is Shawn Michaels singing. Except I remember the first person they recorded, the girl at the beginning going, oh, Shawn. That was Sherry Martel, was it not?
It was.
Okay. Now I know they re-recorded that bit later down the road, but the first one was in fact Sherry Martel.
Yeah.
Just a little fun fact for you. Because we're talking about entrances. Good ones, bad ones, ones that went wrong, hilarious ones.
And some that are just underrated and overrated.
Yeah, that's true. And why not begin? I didn't even realize I didn't wear this shirt on purpose, but why don't we start with Cody Rhodes' AEW entrance? Love it or hate it?
Okay. Are we talking his normal every show entrance, or are we talking about his special entrances?
Yes. So I will say I can't think of a Cody Rhodes entrance I didn't like. I like some weren't as good as he thought they were going to be, but some were hit or miss. But overall, I think they were good. His regular everyday entrance, I know a lot of people gave him flack about coming up from the middle, but I actually liked that. And the song kicks ass.
Yeah, it definitely kicks ass. And I mean, I liked him coming up from the entrance. It made it different from everybody else.
Well, and that song is so cool, in fact. I remember I was listening to this podcast once. You might have heard of it. And when it was rumored that Cody was coming back to WWE for WrestleMania, the really good-looking host said something to the effect of, this is how they should do his entrance. They should have him come up through the middle, start out dark, and then the whole wrestling has more than one royal family, and then kick into Kingdom by Downstate. And they did that entrance to the T. It's almost like, they're watching this really awesome and cool podcast. Oh, wait, that was us.
Oh, I know.
I mean, they had to do it.
Yeah. There was no reason for them not to.
Unless it was a licensing issue, but WWE has worked with Downstate before. I think they still do, actually. Here and there. Well, obviously they do for Cody's, but
yeah. I got one for you, and this is a bit overrated. I think it is, and that's Drew McIntyre's thing.
Yeah,
is it very overrated?
It's not. I mean, it's cool. I guess it could be so much better for somebody like Drew McIntyre, somebody like Finlay. Like, it reminds me of Finlay's interest, which worked for him. But Drew McIntyre's, no disrespect to Fit Finlay at all, but like Drew McIntyre's a bigger deal. Yeah. But actually, Finlay's entrance was even cooler because my name is Finlay and I love to fight, and then into the whole bagpiping.
Yeah, and it worked for him because he lived the Irish gimmick.
Well, he is Irish.
Yes, but it worked for him for some reason. It just.
Well, and plus his position on the card, because it was never going to be, well, not at that time, it was never going to be Finlay versus John Cena at WrestleMania for the WWE Championship. It didn't need to be flashy. It didn't need to be particularly special, but I would argue it made more of an impression than Drew McIntyre's. And he had a much cooler theme before. They changed it up a bit.
I don't remember. Honestly, I only remember that one, and I remember his WCW one.
Drew McIntyre's?
No.
Oh, I'm talking about Drew McIntyre. Sorry.
Oh yeah. What is it? Is it Broken Dreams? I think is what it is.
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Is what he used to come out to, and everyone loved that too. And that's what they were hoping out when they did the UK show. People were hoping that he'd come out to that.
Yeah, and then while we're talking about Drew McIntyre's entrance, can we talk about the sword? It was cool the first time he did it. It was kind of cool the second time he did it. And then it started to get old. I think that's something that they really should have saved for special occasions.
Yeah. And honestly, if you think about it, they got rid of it after WrestleMania almost.
Yeah, because it was
the whole cutting the rope thing.
Yeah, it was it's one of those things that it was cool and then it overstayed its welcome.
Yeah.
And then they tried to make a thing. This was still when Vince was there, though. They tried to make a thing of it because somebody took it at some point. I can't remember.
I think it was Baron Corbin.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was Baron Corbin. But yeah,
but I mean, it works for him. But I think it's a bit overrated.
Oh yeah, I'd say so. An entrance that I would say is it wasn't overrated. I think it's mildly over the top now. Is Asuka's entrance?
Yeah,
overall it's good, but I have this issue with Asuka in general. I think that I think she needs. I can't believe I'm saying this because it is pro wrestling. I think she needs to dial it back just a hair because now she's kind of coming across as somebody who has massively horrible clinical ADHD.
Yeah.
Even just her general mannerisms.
I mean, I think with her, her entrance it comes and goes with me. I think
the entrance
sometimes it pops there, and then there's sometimes it's it's Asuka.
Well, sometimes what happens? Generally speaking, it's a cool entrance, but sometimes she just goes a little hammy with it. There's a little too much movement, and I think what they were thinking was it would appeal to the kids because it's kind of and this isn't just her entrance. This is more just Asuka, the character. I think they kind of told her to dial up the silliness a bit because they were still going for that PG thing. And they're, the kids will think she's funny and she says funny things and they don't speak Japanese, so it's silly. But I think, for example, her NXT persona was flawless.
Yeah.
This is a person.
She was also getting pushed in NXT, so it seemed like it worked right with her.
Well, but in NXT, they knew she's got an undefeated streak. She's more of a loose cannon than just a kooky person because you're not she could come out to the ring and you're not sure if she's gonna give you a high five or kick you in the face.
Yeah.
Sometimes both. She was flawless in NXT. And another fun fact, unless I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but Asuka left NXT with her undefeated streak still intact.
She did.
Yeah.
And she wrestled Charlotte at WrestleMania 34 for the Women's World Title. Because fun fact, was at that WrestleMania.
I still maintain, I remember that WrestleMania, and I still said at the time, I think that was the best match on the card that year.
Probably was.
The best wrestling match, not necessarily the biggest deal or the best hype, but I think it was the best wrestling match.
Yeah, it probably was because that's where they had. That's when Charlotte did the big moonsault off of the top rope to Asuka.
Yep.
Because that was the same year that she won the Royal Rumble to face Charlotte.
Yep. And that was also the only match on the card where I literally. It just worked. It was the only time where I was ever thinking, I was able to suspend my disbelief and be just enjoy a wrestling match and the back and forth, and it was competitive, and you got the sense that either one of them could have won at any moment. Like, legitimately. Because sometimes, not so much on pay-per-views, but sometimes a match comes on and you're like, oh, well, obviously this person's going to win.
Yeah.
It's like, why bother having the match? Or ones where you're like, oh, this is going to be a squash match, and then the nobody, like, has a comeback. And you're like, wait a minute, weren't you in the world title picture like a month ago and you're having trouble with this nobody? I don't know, but they don't pay me to book the stuff.
Yeah. An entrance I personally like and everybody likes. And the man above us would agree with me too. Hogan.
You know, as much as I always said that I didn't want to see Hulk Hogan on television, whenever he came on television, I was like, it's Hulk Hogan. You can't help it.
As a heel, you were cheered for him. Like Hogan was the guy, whether he was in red and yellow or in black and white, or if he was in a red, white, and blue.
Yeah, Hogan was the epitome of, like, God, I would hate this person if I knew him, but as a wrestling personality, the people love him. Plus, it's another kick-ass song. Yeah. It's a good song.
Very good song. I don't. And people trash on Hogan so much and say he's such a bad wrestler, but go watch his New Japan stuff.
Yeah, no, he could do it.
And then to us.
Yeah. Well, and then also, while we're talking about Real American, that was the song that Benji got taken out to, which I thought was, like, when they hit that, I just kind of, like, I did one of these, so I was just like, big smile on my face, but just like, oh, yep, that makes perfect sense.
And that was chosen by me.
Oh, I believe that 100%.
That's the one. If he was going to go out in the bang, he was going to go out to Hogan's theme song.
Oh, I'm sure he loved that. But while we're speaking of Hulk Hogan, one entrance that I think was severely overrated was the NWO.
I think the WWE version NWO was overrated.
I think it all sucks.
What?
The song's not nearly as cool as they think it was, and the whole, like, black and white thing, I don't know. To me, it was just... To me, and granted, I wasn't a WCW mark, so this is probably why I think this way. To me, like, I watched so what I'm saying is I didn't see it when it was happening. I've seen it after the fact. So to me, it just looks like three old dorks that think they're still cool and have, like, their little motorcycle gang, and it's three dudes that want to pretend like they're in the Hells Angels, but aren't.
Exactly.
But that doesn't make it cool. That makes it dorky.
Hey, it made it cool for them.
I mean, there's no denying that. As much as I don't understand it, you can't deny that. And I mean, they still sell NWO shirts. Still. Oh, who else? Let's elephant in the room. Undertaker.
One of my favorite.
Maybe one of, if not the best, one of the best entrances in wrestling, period.
As soon as you hear that gong and the lights go out, you know it's Taker and he's about to come kick some ass.
The one complaint I have, and it never seemed to affect me on TV, but when I was in person, sometimes I'd be like, okay, let's get to the ring.
He does have one of the longer entrances of, like, I remember what WrestleMania was it where it had the long entrance. His entrance was like 5.5 minutes.
Well, one of my other co-hosts says Sean Hickenbottom. LOL, what a name. Actually, it was Michael Sean Hickenbottom. because Sean's not his first name. But yeah, good old Michael Sean Hickenbottom. See, what always like wowed me about Shawn Michaels was when he was in the WWF, he was one of the smaller guys. So on TV, he looked very small, just comparatively speaking. Shawn Michaels is a large man. Like, he is not a small person. But just when you're standing next to, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, like, yeah, you're going to look a little bit shorter. But
yeah. Oh, let me think of one.
Well, there's another one, Triple H.
Okay, are we talking
his regular? Oh,
no, are we talking Hunter Hearst Helmsley Triple H?
No, we're talking Triple H.
Now, are we saying overrated, underrated, or
fucking awesome? Perfect. Awesome.
Agreeable. It's a one of a kind entrance. He comes out, he spits water. Who else does that?
Actually, a couple people, but nobody seems to have been able to do it quite like he does.
He's got a kick-ass entrance.
Every time Triple H came out to the game, because I know for a while he was coming out to bow down to the king, which was still cool, but anytime he did like the game entrance, it didn't matter who he was wrestling. It felt like it was going to be a fight. That's why it was such a good entrance.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, and that's why it was effective. But how about DX?
I mean, I loved it.
Yeah, it got the crowd hyped.
Yeah, you knew if you heard DX, that crowd was popping.
You were gonna have a good time.
Okay, here's one that's a little overrated in my opinion. Jon Moxley's.
Oh yeah, tremendously overrated. I think it sucks. Okay, I'm gonna get some hate for this one. The crowd thing, again, was cool the first time. Kind of cool the second time. Now it's just, now it's going to take him forever to get to the ring.
Yep.
And I actually think Wild Thing is even worse than like kind of the more generic music he had before.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing for the reason why he took over and using it was for somebody else because they used it that passed away.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that it's just not working anymore.
Yeah, it's done. Just come, like, the song's fine. Just come through the tunnel like everybody else. We get it. Oh, this Shield thing. Well, guess what? You're not even in the same company. It's done. It's old. Let it go. Not only that, why does nobody ever, like, just jump him when he's coming over the guardrail?
That's what I'm saying, because they know he's coming from one of the guardrails. So.
Yeah, you can literally see him coming. Just have if it was Moxley versus Jericho, if Jericho had a brain, just be like, okay, I'm gonna have 6 of you guys in the crowd. First one to get a crack Moxley's skull gets, I don't know, a reward. Like, this would be easy. But that's my problem with wrestling, and that's wrestling fans get annoyed with me because I'm probably a little bit too close to the Jim Cornette school of thought, but like, it's got to make sense, otherwise it's just silly. And if you don't treat it like it's a real, like we all know it's predetermined, but it's kind of like, if you watch an action flick, if something's too silly, you're just like, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, okay, if you're trying to win a match, why would you do this, this, and this? Which is why AEW's stupid ladder matches always infuriate me. It's like, oh, somebody's coming in the ring, let's just stop and look.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, WWE does it sometimes.
Yeah, but it seems to be particularly bad in AEW.
Like, keep climbing.
Or I just love how everybody was like, I've climbed some ladders. It's not that difficult. But everyone's just like going as slow as human. And I understand that later in the match it can be because you're tired or you've been hurt. But again, not to keep picking on AEW, but it's so easy. Like that one ladder match I just complained about so much where Wardlow ended up winning it. It's like, it's the beginning of the match. And they realize, oh crap, we have to stall because nobody's planned out anything.
Yeah.
It's like, you're all fresh. You should be able to be up that ladder in like 2 seconds.
Exactly.
My favorite is when they get like almost to the top and then they reach. Oh, I can't get it. Oh, take a step up, dipshit. Like,
and then once the person finally gets in there to stop them, they finally take that step.
Yeah, then they get up high enough where they can. And Jeff Hardy seems to be the only person who had any sense in the ladder match because he's done this a couple times where somebody goes to tip the ladder and he grabbed a hold of the belt. It's like, okay. You won.
He grabbed the belt, and I'm surprised it didn't come undone.
Well, but I mean, I guess the point here is like, yes, it's going to be painful, but you either get to fall holding the belt or fall from the top of a ladder anyway. Either way, you're going to fall.
Yeah.
So I guess grab the belt. Because then at least, A, you've won the match, and B, that's the last fall you're going to take in the match because it's over. You've won.
Exactly. Here's one. And I could say both of them at the same time. And anytime you hear their entrance songs, you know that crowd's gonna go wild. As a heel or as a face. I'm taking the Rock and Austin.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't matter what they're doing. If Austin's coming out to drink a beer, or if it's The Rock coming out to sing a goddamn song with his guitar, the crowd's gonna pop.
Yeah, those are two guys that can virtually do no wrong. So speaking of Stone Cold, well, not speaking of Stone Cold, but this is one that has kind of gone downhill over time, is Kevin Owens. His first one ever was the best one.
It was.
Which is one of it's one of my favorite moments in wrestling history. Just his debut in NXT and that match was, I don't know, it made perfect sense. I think he could bring it back, but honestly, I think his problem on the main roster is the ramp's longer. So he can't keep that. He could keep that intensity up, but it would be kind of silly because he's walking such a long way. I really wish they would shorten that damn ramp.
I mean, you have to go with what the build has, but I know what you mean.
It's too long. Or and then what was, I think it was it WrestleMania 35. What WrestleMania are we on now? 20, 30 something?
37.
Okay, so
30.
it might have, I think it was 35 where that ramp was long.
Oh, I mean, so was the one just last year, too, the one in Texas.
Yeah, that was long. It's a good thing the Ultimate Warrior doesn't wrestle for him anymore. He'd have died before he got to the ring.
I mean, didn't he already, though?
That's what I'm saying. It was, oh God, this was years ago, but I think it was on Stone Cold's podcast. He was talking about, he's like, he'd been gassed before he got to the ring.
Oh, yeah. He was gassed before he came out of the entrance curtain.
Yeah. But how about that Ultimate Warrior entrance, though?
I mean, I'm an Ultimate Warrior fan, so...
I get it. It worked, and it was different.
It was definitely... No one, you would never think for somebody just to run out and just sprint.
Well, you know who did it right, though? And this will bring back some memories, all you Ruthless Aggression era fans. And I loved their entrance. I thought they did it extremely well, was Kendrick in London.
Okay. They did do it pretty well.
And they would sprint right to the ring. And WWE made me so mad back in the day because Kendrick and London never got their due.
I don't even think they didn't even hold the tag titles very many times. I don't think.
No, and there were so many times where we were like, "Oh, just give them the belts."
I think they maybe held it like once, maybe twice.
I don't think it was more than twice. I can't even remember them. I'll put it to you that way.
I think I can. I remember one time of them having it, but I don't. Like I said, I don't remember either.
That's what I'm saying. They were just not memorable. Now, I know at one point, I think it was actually Paul London who got lippy with somebody, and that caused him to get kind of punished, so to speak. This is all hearsay. I don't know, but... Do you remember the Highlanders?
Oh, I do remember the Highlanders. What was their name?
I can't remember, but you know what?
They wore the kilts.
Yeah, they were good though for what they were. I mean, I'm not saying they were bad.
They were the Ruthless Aggression era Viking Raiders.
Yeah, except I think the Viking Raiders are a little bit higher up on the totem pole. But yes, essentially, Viking Raiders, I think, could, at a moment's notice, kind of be in the tag team championship conversation.
Yeah.
But I think the Highlanders were just kind of more of a workhorse team. Like, we need a tag team match. Send the Highlanders out with Kendrick and London, and they'll give them 12 minutes, and they'll tear the house down. But speaking of tag teams, I think this entrance was severely overrated, which it wasn't highly praised, but considering who these two were, I think their entrance was kind of lame. Was the world's greatest tag team, Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin.
You think they were overrated?
I think the entrance was overrated. I think the tag team was underrated.
I mean, honestly, I don't really think they didn't really do much with her.
That's what I'm saying. They should have had more considering who they were.
They should have had more of a Kurt Angle-ish type entrance.
Yeah. And they were often like kind of paired with Angle too, so that really kind of doesn't make sense.
I mean, at one point they were wearing the same jackets as him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I see what you're getting at.
It just kind of seemed kind of meh considering who they were and how good they were. Which, while we're on the subject, I'm going to get on my soapbox here. Because Shelton Benjamin might get the award for most underrated talent. Maybe not ever. Well, no, maybe ever. Because Shelton Benjamin has been just criminally underused his entire career. Go watch the Money in the Bank match from WrestleMania 23. It's like the Shelton Benjamin show. He's the highlight reel of that match. And really, I'd say probably anything from I can't remember when he went with the company, but even when he was in OVW, I mean, basically anything Shelton Benjamin's ever done. Like, the dude's a freak of nature athletically.
I mean, in OVW, he was working with people like Brock Lesnar and Batista, and
yeah, and he was like the
main event guy.
Yeah, and he was like the one person from that class that ended up going to the main roster that didn't end up being like a main eventer.
Yeah,
and I can't tell you why. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
I don't know. I just don't think. My version of Shelton Benjamin I liked is when he had his mother with him. Grandma was.
I don't know that I saw that. I just remember his Cisco era.
No, yeah, I think it was his mom or his grandma or somebody related to him. She'd come. He'd push her out in her. I thought she had shopping cart, hitting a brain fart, wheelchair, and she had her oxygen tank on the back, and they would do matches.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
Yeah, go back and watch it. That was a great era of Shelton Benjamin.
Well, I guess I just lament because Shelton Benjamin should have been a world champion.
Okay.
Now, before you sit, because I know where you're going with this, keep in mind you probably feel that way because of how he was booked.
So, I don't think he was world champion material. I think he was good, but I don't. If he would have won it, it would have had to been, I think, a one-off.
See, but I think you say that because of how he was booked. And here's why. And I kind of started thinking this way when he was with Bobby Lashley. And I think it was the moment I noticed this was actually when they turned on him or something. And at some point, Shelton is standing next to Bobby. And Bobby is a big dude.
Yeah.
But Shelton's standing next to him, and he's pretty close to the same size. And I just like, You know, I guess I never, because who Shelton Benjamin really regularly worked with, they just kind of all looked like they were on the smaller side. But he's standing next to Bobby, and I'm kind of like, he's bigger than I thought.
I mean, I don't think he's not built as big as Bobby.
Not as big, but he's not nearly as small in comparison as like you would think he is.
And his first go around, Shelton Benjamin, he's definitely bigger now than he was then.
True, because I remember there was a little time period, and I think he got injured. He was in New Japan where he was Shelton X Benjamin, and I even said, I was like, oh damn, he put on some weight in a good way.
Oh, see, I didn't know
it was
he did anything.
It was very short lived. He got injured or sick or something. Actually, now that I think about it, I think he got sick. It was very exciting. Because I was like, oh, finally, because somebody like Shelton Benjamin would get over huge in New Japan.
I can see it. I'm trying to think.
But anyway, Shelton Benjamin should be much higher up on the card and used differently, but I think it was just years of not being booked like a main event talent, and now he's kind of got the mid-card stink on him.
Yeah, and I feel like, I mean, he held the IC title, he held the US title, but I think he should have made at least more of a name for him. Like, he's more known for the IC title than anything, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think what happened, because it's kind of the same thing that happened to Shawn Spears, Ty Dillinger, is they were so good in the ring that they were like, when you can wrestle anybody, they'll have you wrestle anybody.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, that's why historically the IC title has kind of been like the workers' title.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm trying to think of a good example. Shawn Michaels might be the exception because Shawn Michaels can have a match with anybody too, but different time, different era. But, it's like when you need somebody to carry that mid-card title, you put it on somebody like a Shelton Benjamin. But you tend to need somebody to hold a mid-card title fairly often. But then you can run the risk of getting that stink on it. Because the same thing, I still maintain, the same thing would have happened to Cody Rhodes if he'd stayed in WWE. Because he would have had that mid-card stink on him.
Yeah, and he would have always been mid-card doing the U.S. champion and the IC title all the time. I mean, it was good for him that he finally left or got departed either way of what happened.
Well, I kind of think, especially now, I think just about the best thing somebody in WWE who's... Now, this might change because Triple H is now in charge. But certainly back in the day, if you were stuck in WWE like you were stagnant, the best thing you could do is leave. Go to somewhere like New Japan... or not Impact, or AEW, ideally.
Yeah.
Now that's kind of changed, because now AEW is kind of like, oh, well, you better make a big impression when you get there, because if you don't, then you'll just get stuck in the mid-card, like, immediately, and never, ever, ever get out. We're picking on WWE a lot, so let's you know, one show that I always kind of dug the entrances, and I can't think of one that really sticks out, but I liked the way they did the entrances, was Lucha Underground.
You know, I've seen clips of Lucha Underground, but I never really watched it.
You should. I think it's still on Netflix. I can't remember, but it was very good. And I might have a soft spot for it because it kind of got me, that along with NXT back in like 2014 got me hardcore back into wrestling.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was funny because when I first discovered Lucha Underground, it wasn't on El Rey, it was on the Spanish channel. So I'm watching it thinking this is like a Mexican promotion. And I'm like, this is badass. Don't know what the commentators are saying because at the time I didn't speak any Spanish.
Yeah.
But at the time, and then it was like, then they had a promo that was like, Lucha Underground on El Rey. And I'm like, El Rey? That's an actual network. And then I found out that I had El Rey, and I was like, oh, they have English. Great. Perfect. Dude, I had to get new TV service when I was hardcore into Lucha Underground. I spent so much extra money just to make sure that I could get El Rey. It pissed me right off.
Well, at least you're able to watch it still.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm looking at 3 different cable companies. I'm like, okay, which one gives me El Rey? And all of them, it's an upgrade. Like, damn it! All right, well, we're about to run out of time for this particular meeting, so I will go ahead and start a new one, but we'll be right back. And I actually realized I forgot to get my sponsor thing, so give me 1 second. And we're back. Dinner. Think I'm cute. No, I'm sexy. He's got the looks that drives the girls. Why he's got the moves. Really move on. He sent chills up and down their spines. He's just a sexy boy.
Sexy Kurt.
I'm just a sexy Kurt. That entrance wins automatically. That was so funny.
I'll make your ankle hurt.
I love that. Kurt Angle. Oh my God. Speaking of Kurt Angle, his TNA entrance, quite good.
It was good. Because I wasn't watching it at that time.
I wasn't either, but I tuned in. It wasn't much longer after, but my roommate at the time was he actually got me into wrestling. And he had the, I forget which pay-per-view it was, but he had it on DVD. And he was like, you need to watch this pay-per-view. I was like, oh, that's so badass.
But, I mean, Kurt Angle had a good entrance. Like, one of the most interactive entrances ever.
In WWE?
I mean, even in TNA, they were saying that you suck too, part of it.
Well, yeah, but that followed him. He'll never...
Like his entrance was so interactive,
yeah.
And it was fun too. I remember when I was young, my parents had talked about going to like a SmackDown or a Raw, and I remember asking my mom because it was right after they started doing the "You Suck" chants for Kurt Angle, and I was how old would I have been? This would have been like 05, 06, so I'd have been like 7 or 8. And I remember asking my mom, I said, if Kurt Angle comes out, I said, "Can I do the you suck chants?" And she goes, "You know, you said." She goes, "You know, you can say that."
Well, yeah, you're supposed to. It's Kurt Angle. You got to say you suck. How about Eddie Guerrero?
Anytime you heard that song, it just
it's on my playlist. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. Now I didn't really care for his WCW theme song too much.
No, I'm talking WWE Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah, definitely. Then, here's here's an entrance that we're not allowed to talk about.
Oh, Chris Benoit.
Like yes.
That song's on my playlist. It's good. And his Titantron video was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously, nobody beats WWE on the Titantron videos, but especially the Ruthless Aggression. Now they're boring. Okay? Now they suck. But holy crap, man, from I would argue, well, I mean, they've usually been pretty good, but I would argue the Ruthless Aggression era had the best ones.
I mean, I would say in the Attitude era, but in the Ruthless Aggression era.
I'll give you that.
Because Titantrons just aren't the same anything. It's just a name.
Well, now it's so boring now. And even AEWs are kind of boring by comparison. Now, Darby Allin's got a pretty cool one. Yeah. Which he's got a pretty solid entrance. It's memorable and it's different. Sting's AEW entrance is awesome.
God, yes. And I would never put Snow together with Sting. I would never think.
I wouldn't either, man, but it makes perfect sense. It works.
It does. I when he first came out with it, I'm like,
oh,
really, Snow? And then it took a little bit to grow on me, and then I was like, that's actually pretty sweet.
Oh man, it didn't me. It got me instantly. I got chills watching that because I remember I watched Winter is Coming live, and oh man, yeah, oh, and I was 80% sure it was Sting, and then it's Sting. So cool.
My question is now: is we're Sting injured right now? Or is he just taking time off?
I'm gonna be honest. I think he is injured, but I'm going to be honest. I can't remember the last time I watched AEW Dynamite. Now, half of that has been because I've been...
I'm not going to lie, I've been watching it recently, and that's only because, when I get off and I get home, I'm awake pretty late.
Yeah.
And, I don't catch it, at the first time, so, it replays the second time, so that's when I finally hits to watch it, and I'm like... the whole here's my opinion, and this is going off the topic, but still staying on AEW. The whole ordeal with Paige, Syra, whatever you want to call her.
Oh, Saraya.
I think it's getting overhyped, in my opinion.
It probably is.
But the promos they just had together this past Dynamite were really good, actually.
Yeah, it's been mostly just because I've been just insanely busy.
Oh, we both have.
Yeah, but I will say this. I've been a wrestling fan when I was super busy before, and I made time. But I also, this is the perfect example. So I finally got into Game of Thrones.
Oh, I'm right there with you. But I started watching House of Dragon first.
Okay. But I literally just got into it. So I get home and I'm beat. I'm tired. And I'm like, I'd rather just watch Game of Thrones. I'd rather watch a show that I can watch anytime I want.
Yup.
Than tune into AEW. Now, I did catch the most recent SmackDown, and woohoo! That was really good. It reminded me of back in 2006. When for me,
And that's what.
yeah, for me, SmackDown and Raw were cannot miss television.
And honestly, that's just the way it's getting to be anymore. It's like
Yeah, it was solid.
You miss one Raw SmackDown. It's like you're kind of out of the loop a little bit.
Well, and not only that, like it was great from start to finish. Like I even enjoyed the Liv Morgan Sonya Deville match.
The Fatal 4-Way.
Oh, maybe I'm behind. No, it was the one immediately after Extreme Rules.
Yeah, you're behind then.
Oh, okay. Well, I watched that episode of SmackDown. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm wrong in my head. No, it wouldn't have been the most recent, but I watched it when it was the most recent.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what was in my head. And like, dude. And like, don't get me wrong, I like Liv Morgan, but I was like, it's a girls' match. That match was solid.
And in my opinion, I think Sonya Deville is underrated.
Oh, she is. Her entrance isn't. Her entrance stinks, but you know what doesn't stink? Stevie Wicks Cool Beans candles. None of these stink unless there's a particular scent you don't like, but guess what? You don't have to order it. And as a proud sponsor in this podcast, unfortunately, you have missed the boat. The Halloween candles are gone. You can't get them. You might be able to get some of them next year, but you don't know because nobody knows what their Halloween candles are going to be next year. Now, Christmas candles are coming up. As far as I know, they will be available immediately after Thanksgiving. So watch out for those. But you can always get high quality soy wax, all natural candles with, honestly, they're the best smelling candles you will ever get. And I'm not just saying that because they're a sponsor of the podcast. They truly, truly are. So much so that I have them hanging. Oh God, you do need to get you some. And they make a great gift. And I don't know the details yet, but I know they are tweaking the subscription box options to make it a little bit more high value.
Ooh.
For all of you people out there. And then there are also some new products coming, which I don't know the specifics, so I couldn't tell you even if I wanted to. I was just told there's new stuff on the way. So check them out. StevieWicks.com. That's StevieWix.com. And get your candles today. Also, you should follow them on Facebook and Instagram because Facebook gives you access to custom and special priced merchandise. They do special watch programs, and then they always have deals going on there and on Instagram. So like and follow them on Instagram and Facebook so that you can get access. Plus, it's the first news that you'll ever get regarding them. So, StevieWicks.com, and back to the show. You know what else stinks, though?
What?
Sheamus's entrance.
Now, are we talking as in like a tag or just as a singles?
No, because the entrance he did with Cesaro was awesome.
Right. The bar?
Yeah. That was awesome. Holy crap, how good was the bar?
I love the bar.
So, fun fact about the bar, for all of you non-Dragon Ball fans out there, the bit they would do where they would go like this to each other, that's a reference to the fusion dance from Dragon Ball Z.
I never put that together.
Yeah, that's...
I knew about it, but I didn't... I wonder if that's how they did it, or if that was just something they'd done.
Oh no, it's 100% it's a reference to the fusion dance. There's actually a lot of, specifically Dragon Ball, but there's actually a lot of anime references in wrestling today. Like for example, you got Riddle's Final Flash finisher. That's a Vegeta reference.
Yeah, and we know literally everything that Xavier Woods does has to do with a video game or anime or something. I mean, New Day in general, but like...
Well, they all... I forget which one it was, but they all were wearing Saiyan armor for one... I think it was WrestleMania.
It was a WrestleMania that...
They were hosting, though.
Yes, that's when the Hardys came back.
And speaking of the Hardys, together, great entrance.
Oh yeah.
Separate, eh. Well, Jeff's was always good.
Jeff was good. Matt's was okay.
You know what? I always liked version 1's entrance.
Version 1 entrance was great.
I mean,
like,
it could.
regular Matt Hardy.
Yeah. I mean, version 1's entrance could slap a tornado.
Yeah. And I'm surprised. Well, not version 1 Matt Hardy was I was thinking. I was thinking of the other. I was thinking of Matt Hardy, the era when him and Ed were feuding. That should have been a world champion Matt Hardy.
Should have been. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. But still, speaking of entrances, has CM Punk ever had a bad entrance? I don't think so.
I don't think so at all.
Well, because even I know his Ring of Honor entrance was popular as hell, because I've seen that in passing, because I wasn't watching Ring of Honor when he was there first. But I do, because my first exposure to CM Punk was ECW, WWE ECW. That entrance was cool, because I mean it was kind of different from everybody else. It was much. I remember being struck by how hardcore it was, which makes sense for ECW, but
yeah, that's how I got introduced to CM Punk also, because I remember his first entrance. He was sitting in the back and he's going like this, and then they panned in on his tattoo, and then they panned out to him.
Yep.
But little fun fact, he wasn't the first person to use fire burns.
Nope, he wasn't. I forget who was, but I knew he wasn't the first.
Randy Orton was.
That's right.
Randy Orton came out with it one time.
Yep. Oh, man. And then you can't put, I mean, Cult of Personality just fit Punk to a T.
Oh, yeah. Especially after, like, the character change with him, it fits so perfect.
I still actually go back every once in a while, because it still gives me goosebumps watching it. His WWE return, when Cena's in the ring, and I think that was the debut of Cult of Personality for Punk. Actually, yes, it was.
I was about to say it may have. I wasn't watching wrestling at that time.
It was after Punk won Money in the Bank and took the WWE title, but then he took time off because the storyline was that he didn't have a contract, that he was leaving.
Okay.
And then Cena won some deal where he became WWE champion, but then Punk came back to that song, and they're playing it, and Cena's like, because he doesn't recognize it, and then the Punk logo comes up, and the place just erupts.
Speaking of Punk, not to go off topic, how about Punk randomly joining the commentary table for an MMA pay-per-view?
I did see that.
Does that mean Punk is done with AEW?
I really hope not, but I don't want it to be true, but it looks like Tony Khan will make the mistake of, which, and I can't really blame, after everything that happened, I don't really, Tony Khan he's in an impossible situation.
Yeah.
Because you cannot deny that Punk brought ratings to AEW. I mean, all you have to do is look at the numbers.
Oh my God, yes.
But at the same time, the Elite started it. They started AEW and they started the fight. I don't care. Like, yeah, I heard what the report said. I think that report is bullshit.
I mean, we're never going to know unless we were there.
Well, actually, I think we might know. It depends. Because from what I understand, the sticking point in Punk's contract buyout is a non-compete, but I'm willing to bet that another sticking point is going to be, well, probably not a sticking point for Punk, but part of it is an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement.
Okay.
I can't take an investigation seriously where they didn't interview somebody that was in the room. They didn't? No, they didn't interview. Well, they did, but they didn't interview Ace Steel's wife, who was the only person that was in the room that wasn't part of the fight. And who was conducting this investigation? Was Mega spearheading this? Because she was there. She was involved. She's the last person who should be spearheading. They never disclosed who was conducting the investigation, and it looks like it was a sham.
Yeah, they all should have been interviewed for it.
Yeah, everyone.
Everyone that was involved with it. And, like, did we ever find a conclusive answer of, like, what really happened?
I don't think they're going to release that. That's the problem. And plus, to my knowledge, no one has interviewed Larry the dog. He was there.
Yeah, you would say that.
Actually, I can't tell you. Jim Cornette said it first.
Oh, well, go figure.
I can't take credit. That's a Jim Cornette.
I mean, if we see Punk back in AEW, it's going to be a while from now.
I agree with that. Now, here's the thing, though. This is what I would have tried to do, honestly, if I were Tony Khan. Because Punk is under contract. I would have been like, look, here's the thing, Punk. Like, I want you here. We need you here. However, I understand that tensions are high right now. So why don't we do this? The Elite are going to come back on TV. Why don't we take a lot of time? Take some time. Let's everybody cool off, because here's the thing. We need the Elite back on TV to try to get them back over, because Punk is over just by showing up.
Oh yeah.
Punk doesn't need the TV exposure like the Elite does. And I mean, like, again, I was. I don't know where I stand with them now. I was a hardcore Kenny Omega and Young Bucks fan. I'm not so sure these days, but the jury's out, but I want to be. I'll put it to you that way. But if you think that Punk needs to be on TV more than the Elite does in order to get over, I'm sorry, you're out of touch. You're insane.
Yeah.
Because Kenny Omega found out the hard way. Kenny Omega is not over for just showing up anymore. He was at one time.
Yeah.
But he's been too goofy. And now, and here's the funny part. If you go through and look at the ratings from when Kenny left to when Kenny came back, the ratings actually went down. And I think that he thought he was going to get this big pop when he came back, but they did it so stupid, which we went over in this podcast. They did it in such a dumb way. It's like, oh, he was a world champion, now he's coming back for the trios titles?
Exactly.
This is dumb. But they all want to play together.
Which I think within the next month or two, I think we'll see Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks back in the ring.
I think so too. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I want Kenny Omega back on TV. Don't let him write anything for himself. Don't let him talk often at all. Give him a mouthpiece. He's already got Don Callis. Let Don Callis do his work. Let Kenny do what Kenny does in the ring, and let Don Callis talk for him.
Exactly. Exactly.
That was the whole thing. I loved the belt collector gimmick until he started talking. Kenny Omega is not Conor McGregor.
No. He books himself in the weird corners.
Yeah, it's dumb. And plus, I don't know, he can't fake tough guy. He can't do it. It's not a skill he has.
No.
So don't do it. Just don't do it. That would be, for what it's worth, that would be the advice that I would give Kenny Omega. If he was like, hey man, what should I do to get over? I was like, honestly, just do what you did in New Japan. Don't talk. And when you have to talk sometimes. And when you do talk sparingly. And just deliver great matches against good opponents.
Exactly. I completely agree. Here's a answer I've always been fond of. Samoa Joe's.
I'm not as big of a fan.
The WWE version of Samoa Joe is my favorite entrance.
Fun story about that, though, and I remember this because I saw him debut on NXT. That wasn't his music at first. His first entrance was such a dud because the music was bleh.
Was it really?
Well, and the story, according to Joe, is that Triple H was talking to him one day, and he was like, "So how do you feel about the music?" And he was like, "I didn't really want to complain because, like he's the boss, but I kind of was like, I don't really think it's me." And Triple H was like, "Yeah, that's what we were thinking too. You got any suggestions?" Because what his entrance music actually was kind of like a slowed down version of like the old Godzilla theme.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and it was funny because when I first heard that version of it, I immediately noticed it for two reasons. So I was like, oh, one, that's a lot better, and two, where do I know this music from? Because like it's not exactly the same but it sounds really familiar. It was kind of like when I heard Christian Cage's music in NXT. I'm like, not NXT, sorry, TNA, and I'm like, where have I heard this before? And they're like, it's the instrumental track for Last Breath from Evanescence. And I'm like, oh, that's where I heard it.
I didn't. That's something I did not know.
And it still is, actually. It's just, yeah.
I'm definitely going to have to go back and listen to that because I do not remember. I don't.
You can hear it. It's that.
Okay. Now that I think about it, you remember back in my head, I do recognize it now.
Yeah.
Now that you bring it up,
it's obviously mixed differently because it keeps high, but But speaking of Christian, Christian's always had pretty good entrances.
Yeah, I don't remember a bad one.
And he's always been different because I remember his I want to say the band's name is Waterproof Blonde. I could be getting that mixed up. But Just Close Your Eyes.
Yep. That was...
I think it's Waterproof Blonde. The first version. But then, when he came back to WWE, Story of the Year covered it. Holy shit! It's so good!
In my opinion, I think Christian was underrated in WWE.
Yeah, I can see that. But what I was saying about his entrance was so different. Not just musically, because like I can't remember another person at the time, another one of the guys whose entrance music had a female vocalist. And nothing really sounded... Because I know it's not Evanescence, but it was kind of Evanescence-esque.
Yeah.
And come to think of it, he was the only guy... Because most of the guys had like either like a really hard rock song or a rap song, depending on who it was. And he was kind of like in the middle with that more like orchestral alternative feel.
Yeah.
And it was very Christian. The wrestler, not the religion.
Yeah.
Although, speaking of...
I just had a name pop in my head and I forgot about it.
Well, while you're thinking of it, what about Bobby Roode?
Glorious was my favorite.
I loved it when he first did it, but then it just got... who am I kidding? It's Glorious.
Man, who was it that I was just thinking of? Oh, RVD. Loved his entrance. I'll
always love RVD's entrance and matches, and one of my favorite matches of all time was... It wasn't at Invasion, but it was leading up to Invasion, was when he and Jeff Hardy had a match over the Hardcore title.
Oh.
So good.
Him and who?
RVD and Jeff Hardy.
Okay, now I remember what you're talking about.
And it was still when the Fink was ring announcing.
Okay.
It's the World Wrestling Federation, representing the World Wrestling Federation. Raw. So good.
Here's an overrated entrance song. Honky Tonk Man.
Oh God, yeah.
great wrestler. I mean, his song worked for what it was, but like, I think it was a bit overrated.
A smidge, yeah. You want to know an underrated one?
Who?
Taz. In WWE.
Trying to remember it.
It's the whole, like, it starts out with like a heart monitor sound.
Okay, where it was like the do, 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 and then it hit.
Yeah. Now I always loved the Taz bit, you know, it's like, oh god, I'm drawing a blank. Beat me if you can, survive if I let you. Did you freeze there, good buddy? Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out.
You're playing games on your phone while you're podcasting, aren't you?
No, I'm not. I can't.
Hey, you can watch that.
I can't more.
You can watch that disgusting, degenerate crap after you're done talking about wrestling.
Oh,
you can look up Tony.
Multitask like that.
You can look up Tony Storm's OF after we're done.
Hey, that shit's expensive. But
oh, well, speaking of overrated, Tony Storm's entrance is overrated in AEW.
I've been bad and don't watch much AEW, so honestly, I can't pinpoint it.
But you know whose entrance isn't overrated? Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. Her entrance is awesome.
Well, something I just realized, and I didn't put two and two together until I just watched this past Dynamite, is I didn't realize they put an actual tooth on her Titantron.
Yeah.
I never realized that.
Yeah, Britt Baker is... Honestly, she could teach a clinic on how to get over. Because she did it completely organically. And she didn't have a WWE name to fall back on. In fact, when she first started, like, not everybody knew that she was Adam Cole's girlfriend. Like, it wasn't heavily publicized until much later. But I remember, because I was at All In, and when she came, like, I'd never heard of Britt Baker before in my entire life. And when she came out, I was like, fuck, I hope she wins. It's like, I was instantly rooting for her. Now, actually, yeah. I think I was rooting for Tessa Blanchard, but I was like, oh, damn, I wouldn't have been disappointed if anybody had won that match, but such a good match.
I still need to get that info on watching that All In.
I need to send you that link that may or may not exist.
Yeah.
All right, we got about 10 minutes, so let's do a rapid fire mode. The Acclaimed has a great entrance.
Yeah, because theirs is all natural. It's on the fly.
Here's what's funny, and I half called this. When Max Caster first rapped, I was like, oh, God, John Cena ripoff. And I'm like, but I'll probably start to like it. And sure enough, I started to like it. But speaking of John Cena, I think his entrance is overrated.
Okay, I think... Here's my issue with that. I think, okay, as a whole, I think everybody thinks John Cena is overrated. And the reason why I say that is because Vince pushed John Cena so far down our throats from 2006 until about 2016, 2015. He was pushed down our throats. So for almost 10 years, it was John Cena.
I partially agree and partially disagree. I think that he was pushed down our throats, but I also don't think Vince McMahon had much of a choice.
I mean, he didn't really have anybody. I mean, okay, it was either John Cena, or it was Randy Orton, or it was Triple H, or it was Taker on and off. But it was Edge on and off.
Yeah, but of all the people you mentioned and will mention, name one other than Cena that could have transcended the wrestling business.
Okay, name one that could have brought it to its potential it is now from that era.
No. I mean somebody that reaches out away from somebody like The Rock, somebody like Stone Cold who transcended just wrestling and became a cultural icon outside of wrestling. Yeah,
Outside of wrestling?
Edge maybe, but not like Cena did.
Honestly, Edge would be the only one that I could think of.
Yeah, and the only problem there was his name, honestly, because I mean, you would have had to have used at best you would have had to do Adam Edge Copeland,
Yeah.
which would it sounds simple, but that can be really hard if you've got like that sort of name in wrestling to transfer out, because like somebody like Rey Mysterio would have that problem too.
Yeah.
Now, less of a problem, but it's not a normal-ish sounding name. Now, The Rock did it, but when he went to Hollywood, he immediately started using it. He did it perfectly, because I think the first movie he ever did, he was billed as The Rock. And then immediately after that, it was Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And then now it's Dwayne Johnson. But everybody still knows him as The Rock.
Yeah, it's because he's transitioned so much into, like, movies and TV shows and everything else. Like, he's got a wide variety of people that know him now. It just wasn't from wrestling.
Yeah. But credit where credit's due to both Dwayne and John is they've never really shied away from acknowledging their wrestling past. So kudos to them.
Oh, yeah.
Well, hell, the Rock made a show about it.
Literally.
Which is very good.
Let's throw some more out there.
I'm trying to think of some New Japan ones. So, okay, here's one.
I got one too.
Okay, Shinsuke Nakamura's New Japan entrance was so freaking cool. Go back, YouTube it if you're not familiar. It's way better. Now, his NXT entrance was perfect. Because the song is awesome. But now I don't know, they've killed Shinsuke for me, but his New Japan entrance was badass.
Here's one for you, and you're not going to expect it. Because he's not normally a New Japan guy. Vader.
Oh, no, yes. Very, very good.
Like, I mean, I don't know much of New Japan, but, like, my character in, like, my wrestling show is based off of Vader in a way.
Yeah, I can see that.
He's the one I kind of portrayed a lot.
Actually, if you guys want to see a really emotional wrestling match, go back and see if you can find it. You can probably find it on New Japan World, but I'm not sure. Is when Antonio Inoki gets beaten by Vader. Way back in New Japan. That crowd is livid. And which is a big deal for a Japanese crowd. I'm just going to rapid fire some other really cool New Japan entrances real fast, and then we'll close it up. Naito with LIJ. That entrance is really good. Hiroshi Tanahashi's, just the crowd gets into it. Kazuchika Okada's entrance is phenomenal. I don't know about his new one, but Will Ospreay's old entrance was really, really good with the song Elevated. That was awesome. Actually, the Young Bucks had a really good entrance in New Japan. And Tama Tonga, I always describe Tama Tonga as a guy who is effortlessly cool. Because Tama will do things in his entrance that he makes it look cool, but if anybody else did it, it would look stupid and silly.
Yeah.
I can't explain why, but Tama Tonga is kind of like if cool was personified as a person. I can't explain why. It's because he does these things. He like does these hand gestures when he's coming down, and like if anybody else did it, they'd look like a dork. But when he does it, it's just like effortlessly cool. Actually, everybody should just go watch New Japan because a lot of their entrances are really cool. Like Hiroki Goto's entrance is cool. So many good ones.
Interesting. I'll have to look into it too.
Yeah. Well, any more you can think of, because we've got about 2.5 minutes.
Here I'll shoot some off. I was always down for the Kane's entrance.
Yeah.
Kane's entrance just always stuck. Shane McMahon's was a good one.
Yeah, people like Shane O'Mac.
Yeah.
Personally, I liked it best when DX parodied it, but...
Okay, yeah.
How about Goldberg's?
I'm a Goldberg fan too.
Goldberg's was solid.
Yeah, when you seen that Titantron and them banging on that door and his songs hitting, they were saying Goldberg.
Yep, solid one.
Oh goodness.
Bayley's first entrance was actually pretty cool. It was noteworthy.
Okay, yeah.
With the wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube men.
Yeah, try to say that really fast.
I actually can. Because it was Family Guy, the Stewie movie. Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man.
Yep, I remember that.
It's one that I can do. All right, give me one more and then we'll close it out.
Give you one more. Give you one more. Let's hit you with a.
I'm gonna hit while you're thinking of it. Layla Hirsch, her entrance is kind of mad, but the song kicks ass.
Big Boss Man was a great one.
Solid choice. Alrighty, everyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Down the Middle podcast. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And kind of an announcement, I don't know when it'll happen, but I think we're going to move Down the Middle over to its own channel, so things get less complicated on the RTA Media channel. But as always, if you prefer to listen to the podcast, you can check it out on Amazon, Apple, Anchor, Audible, Google, iHeartRadio, which is new, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, and of course, you can watch the live stream on Twitch. Ooh. Well, that's all we've got for tonight, folks. If you want us to do another entrance episode, just let us know in the comments. And put your favorite wrestling entrances in the comments, you lazy bastards. Until then,